Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is debate night. And what does that mean? Nothing. What will happen tonight? Nothing. Will anybody change their mind because of the debate? No. Will we learn anything? No. Is there anything positive about it? Not really. Why are we watching? Well, we're watching to see how bad Biden is going to be. Even people who are fans of Biden and people who are going to vote for him want to see how bad he's going to be, how bad he's going to flub. As someone said, let's get ready to mumble. That's the only reason. And we can pretend that there's something to it, that there's going to be some reason for this, that the voters will enjoy. We can pretend all we want, but that's not it. We're there to see how bad Biden is going to be, how rude and obstreperous the great Donald Trump will be. We want him to go in and land a crushing blow. We want him to be the paragon of contumacy. We want him to blister, berate, absolutely destroy Biden by doing something that is viral tomorrow. Let me say this again. Let me be very clear. The only thing that anybody wants to happen, the only thing that we're interested in, is for there to be a viral moment tonight that everybody picks up on, that goes wild on TikTok, that people will edit and chop down and put to music and use their editing genius to make it the meme of the year. That's all we want. It has nothing to do about who's right or who's wrong. It has absolutely nothing to do with any of that. Nothing. Everything that we see tonight, everything that you see, everything that will be discussed has nothing to do with actual governance. Do you understand this? We're not going to learn anything. Nothing. It's going to be so rigged already as we speak. The mainstream media, cable news have already collectively decided and declared Joe Biden the winner. You think I'm kidding? Already, they have declared Joe Biden the winner. Do you think I'm exaggerating? Do you think I'm making this up? I'm absolutely correct. I know exactly what I'm talking about. They're going to see whether Joe can stand for 90 minutes. They're going to see how this new strange setup works, where mics are turned off, where no one can hear Trump. Why did it take Joe Biden a week to prepare for this? Why did it take Joe Biden a week? And many people in the know believe that the reason why was to get him used to standing. That's right, standing. Let me say this again, standing. Ladies and gentlemen, let me first thank you for being with us. Let me remind you, as I do all the time, something very, very frightening. There are 131 days until the election. 131 days before this election. Before we begin, dear friends, dear patriots, dear lovers of liberty, let me remind you to make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you hit that little bell so you're notified of live streams and the like. And now please listen to this word from our great sponsor. 2 million people were hit in a massive debt collection data breach. The most valuable pieces of personal information to hackers were exposed, including full names, birth dates, and social security numbers. What's worse is that the hackers had unauthorized access to this debt collection database for over a week, nearly guaranteeing that they got every piece of information they could ever want on you. That's why I protect my personal data with today's sponsor, Virtual Shield One. And I absolutely love the security I get with them. Virtual Shield One helps protect my personal data, browsing history, and internet activity from data breaches like this one. It does this by continuously scanning the dark web, and it helps to erase my data anywhere it finds it. That's why my private data is better protected against cyber criminals, tech corporations, or ISPs. Plus, Virtual Shield One includes up to $1 million in identity theft protection insurance. So I know my data is safe. Every day, 3.8 million people have their personal records stolen from data breaches. Use Virtual Shield One to help prevent yourself from being one of them. Thanks again to Virtual Shield One for sponsoring Lionel Nation. Be sure to sign up by visiting virtualshield.com/Lionel, or simply use my link in the description below, because every sign up with that link gets up to 67% off with a 60-day risk-free trial. Give yourself the gift of peace of mind. Nobody has ever changed their mind during a debate. I can't say this enough. I don't know where this comes from. This is just a chance for you to see the combatants against each other. It's interesting. Doesn't make any difference. There have been some moments throughout history which I think are favorite. What were some of your favorites? I was watching today, in reviewing the subject matter for tonight's disquisition with you. Do you remember when Rick Perry was standing there next to Ron Paul and others? He says, there's three departments I will get rid of right away: commerce, education, and and he could not think of the three. Could not think of the three. Absolutely, positively incredible. Could not think of the three. This was his thing. His, okay, thanks. There were some other moments. Now, let me remind you, Joe Biden has done 30 debates, but Trump has done more presidential debates. Biden's been there in the capacity of vice president, or I believe some other perhaps capacity. So he's been around. And when you watch, and I spent a lot of time today perusing the various compilations and the like, and what I see is that they're going back at a time, into a time when Joe Biden was younger and more with it. And the Joe Biden then, in some respects, I liked. I could dig the old Joe Biden. He was kind of, sort of, dare I say, one of us. He said some things that just made sense. He and Hillary established more of a middle-of-the-road approach, if you will, towards politics. They weren't really conservative. The thing, my dear friend, that you must understand and grasp, as I know you have, is that politics today, especially the left, or what we call the left, the progressives, have veered so far from reality that this lunacy, this transgender, crypto, whatever the hell it is so deranged, so depraved, so crackers, so bananas, that we forgot that there was a time when there really wasn't a lot that was substantially different between Democrats and Republicans. I'll say it again. There was a time when it wasn't critical. It wasn't, lightning, not lightning. What am I trying to say? Where it wasn't so demonstrably different. Today, the people who are, and listen to this, let me just say this very clearly. The people like myself, me, who are called conservative, who are called Republican, are just common sense. I'm just common sense. I swear to God, I hearken back to what Sarah Huckabee Sanders said. This is about not left and right, but normal and crazy. And there is a crazy part of this. So let's make sure we understand this. And this is really important. When you listen to Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, there was a time when both of them were against the Defense of Marriage Act. And I believe that's the correct position. They believed that marriage was between a man and a woman. They couldn't, but they had nothing to do with this gender lunacy. And it's lunacy. Lunacy. It's the issue which separates the crazies from the not. In the year 2024, there is an actual discussion and a debate. And by the way, I think Joe Biden is a master debater. At least he does so until he needs glasses. Remember that joke? There is something which is so fascinating. Let me say this again. In the year 2024, we are actually saying things and asking questions and dealing with such subjects as, can a man and a woman both get pregnant? Can a man get pregnant? This was a subject which was asked in addition to, can you define what a woman is? Supreme Court nominees, federal judges, federal appointees, federal officers were asked the questions not about worldview and AI, AGI, or the future of no. They were actually asked whether men and women are different. This is where we've gone. Joe Biden was never a part of that. Hillary Clinton was never a part of that, nor was Barack Obama. Nobody was. And I'm going to go a step further. Nobody in this country believes in this crap. Nobody does. There are some lunatics like Rachel Levine. Let me explain something to you. For you to be able to say, listen, sometimes the idea of what makes a man, and a woman is not as clear cut in terms of what people believe in their head. The philosophical part, the emotional, the psychological. But the physical is without a doubt. The physical is without a doubt. Pregnancy, genitals, menses, menarche, birth, that is without debate. There is absolutely no discussion under the sun that is even warranted for that. And in the year 2024, this is the issue that nobody agrees with. Nobody. It's the singular issue that I would make Joe Biden eat. Let me rephrase that I would make him have to defend. It is beyond frightening what we are looking at. And the President Trump, has more to go with, more on his plate, more ammunition than ever. This is a dream come true. This can be the simplest thing ever. And anything he wants to do tonight, Jake Tapper be damned. Dana Bash, nobody cares. President Trump can say, I don't want to answer that question. I want to ask you why your Department of Health, why you and your Rachel Levines were actually advocating having children, little girls and boys, mutilate themselves. Anyway, the point is, this is a dream come true, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're looking at right now. Joe Biden is 81 years old. Donald Trump is 78. Ronald Reagan was 77 when he left office. Now you can understand this or get this. I suppose, but let me make sure you understand something very, very clear here. Very, very critically clear. Okay. When you get older, you might be slower. You might have a certain degree of physical difficulties. It was said one time, and I think it was suggested, think of Ronald Reagan, who was asked one time, they said, Jack Kennedy, we call him Jack, Jack Kennedy during the Cuban Missile Crisis was up for 3 days in a row. And do you think you can do that? And that's when Reagan, I think, did one of his many, well, there you go again. So the real question is, in terms of being older, is the stamina part. Judgment and experience are absolutely something that you just cannot get unless you are older. Now, if you are neurologically unable to do it, if you are cognitively unable to do that, that is a different story. And that's something that, very frankly, we're talking about. Let me say this and make this very clear. We're not talking about age. We're not talking about age. We're talking about mental ability, cognition, awareness, perception, senility, senescence, dotage, decrepitude, people hobbled by this senescence, sundowning, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're talking about. That's it. There's another factor. We have to be able to convey to the world that we and our leadership are vibrant, that we are to be respected, that we are to be absolutely, positively respected and, dare I say, feared. And nobody is going to respect and fear us. No one, if we have a president that looks like that. Now, this is simple. So what we're talking about tonight is just, now I'm going to be live tweeting during this. I hope you have your Twitter account out, or X. I still call it Twitter. And I'm going to say to you, as I'm saying to everybody else, none of this matters. We're just hoping for the gaffe, for the moment. I was watching yet again. I was telling you that I was perusing the history of the debates in these moments. Do you remember when George Herbert Walker Bush looked at his watch? Remember that? They made it sound like, oh, that was the worst thing that ever happened. It was the worst thing. It's the most terrible thing. You know why he looked at his watch? To see what time it was, to see how he was doing. How much time has this, are we getting to the end of it? There was no reason other than just to say, I just want to see what time it was. But they made it sound like he was aloof, like he didn't care. That's not the way a lot of people looked at it. But that's the way they saw it, because at the time, they were themselves also very, very biased and slanted. Our friend George Keene says, speaking of debate zingers, what about Reagan versus Mondale, where he mentioned his youth and inexperience? Well, that was also a good one. And thank you, George. He was waiting. He says, well, I vow that I would never, for, well, political reasons, well, make age an issue, and I don't want to bring up my opponent's youth and inexperience. And even old Mondale liked it. Did that matter? George, let me ask you, did that matter? Did that win him the election? No. No. What difference did that make? They're just pointing this out. And then when one person says it, everybody else repeats it. They repeat it. Well, if you said it, I'm going to say it. Gerald Ford saying there was no Soviet involvement or something to the effect that there will be no Soviet involvement or entanglement in Eastern Europe under a Ford administration. And Max Frankel from the New York Times said, whoa, wait, what? That was the one that got me. I thought that was something. Is that why Gerald Ford lost? No. Gerald Ford could very well have been so jammed up, and I don't mean crooked in terms of taking money, kind of like Spiro Agnew, but what he did regarding the Warren Commission, because you know what happened. One of the deals was, or one of the issues was, they weren't going to extend at first the pardon to President Nixon. And Nixon said it would be a very good idea for Gerald Ford to reconsider that, especially in view of Ford's moving or affecting or reconfiguring the bullet entrance wounds in the JFK assassination. Oh, yeah. How about James Stockdale? Remember that? Stockdale says, who am I? What am I doing here? That was taken out of context. He wasn't saying to himself, who am I? What am I? Where am I? This was a POW. And Dennis Miller, in one of his finest moments, came out and actually spoke in favor of Admiral Stockdale, Medal of Honor recipient, POW, who could have been released early because of his admiral status. He said, oh, no. I mean, this guy was a full-blown hero. And one of the reasons why he, if I recall correctly, why he had difficulty hearing some of the questions was because of this many attacks, rifle butts, and permanent hearing loss by virtue of his captivity. So this was something that never came out because they didn't want to like him or Ross Perot. Ross Perot was an outsider. Great line from Ross Perot. He says, yeah, I'm an outsider. Yeah, I know nothing about running up a $6 trillion debt like you did. And he was spot on. And they point to this. How about this one? Anybody who discusses anything about debates must bring up this chestnut, this bromide, this classic from history. The famous debate between JFK and Richard Nixon with the 5 o'clock shadow. And how Richard Nixon won on the radio, but JFK won on TV. And Don Hewitt, who was the producer of the 60 Minutes show later on, what ran or directed that one as well. Kennedy showed up, and he had been traveling in the back of cars, and he was tanned, and his clothes, his suit fit perfectly. It was blue, and he wore that little tiny his pocket square jutted out just ever so slightly. Tucker Carlson mimics that particular pocket square style. Very interesting. And he stood there, and before the debate, someone said, would you, either of you gentlemen, like any makeup? And Richard Nixon was there, and John Kennedy said, no, I don't want any. Thank you. And Nixon said, well, I don't want any either. Well, Kennedy said, I don't want it from you, but he had makeup applied because he had people say, we know about TV and lighting. And the suit works perfectly. And Nixon's kind of like, it was almost like a powder blue. It was a weird color. It just did not work. Nixon looked furtive and glaring, and his eyes darted, and he looked sinister. And that's just the way he looks. Richard Nixon, hands down, was a genius compared to Kennedy. Kennedy was one of the most overrated presidents in the history of our beloved republic. Oh, this Camelot crap. Even that story is crap. He and Jackie and the whole bunch were a bunch of rakes and roués. The whole Kennedy clan, the whole group. They lived in this world where they don't have to worry about rules of decorum, sexual fidelity. They were like, just, God. I'm so sick and tired of this Kennedy mythology. Oh, for the love of God, they were despicable. I'm serious, the most amoral, not immoral, amoral people anybody's ever seen. Disgusted by them, but that's okay. That's hang on, whoa, down there. Now, but you always hear that, and you always hear this story, this chestnut, this little story about how it was the first time ever it was televised, and Nixon won on radio and JFK won on TV. Enough. Did it matter? No. Do you know what mattered? Sam Giancana and the outfit stealing the election. And Richard Nixon was given the chance to contest it, to challenge the election, to be, and that's right, an election denier. He had that chance. He had that opportunity. And he said, no, for the betterment of the country, I don't want to do this. I don't want to find myself. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't want to do that. But he could have. Because they stole it. Kennedy won by just a sliver. Richard Nixon, what they did to him, and the story they wove, and this cockamamie story from Bob Woodward, this intel plant, this deliberate plant, and there have been many theories posited that said it wasn't Mark Felt, this old codger, this old coot. It wasn't Mark Felt. He wasn't Deep Throat. It was Alexander Haig. And there's many reasons for that. But this was a palace coup. This was from a bunch of inside hardliners who didn't like, you talk about a military-industrial complex. Oh, these folks, they were something else. They didn't like where Nixon was going, the deals he was making with China and Russia. They said, oh, no. And they would stop at nothing to sideline him. They would stop at nothing. And they loved plans and theories and means of operation that were labyrinthine and complicated. They loved that. Look what they did to Kennedy. You know how pulling that one off, how difficult that was? They loved that stuff. This is when the military was something. Let me remind you of something. The military then was like the mafia then. The mafia is a term we use in Hollywood, but the mafia today is non-existent. The mafia today, by virtue of these, everybody's got a podcast, everybody's talking and waxing eloquent about their being straightened out and getting their badge and doing work and blah, blah, blah. The mafia then, the American, was like nothing you could ever even imagine. It had a group of folks, not all of them, but at the hierarchy, especially coming out of World War II, where this country worked with Lucky Luciano, Vito Genovese, and others. And they were, I mean, to tell you, they were something. That mob was like yesterday's military. The military then, these folks were hardcore. Who do we have now? Petraeus? Who? Not Rick. What was his name? Sanchez? Odiorno? Who? Who was the George Marshall? Doesn't exist. Do you know that? Please don't quote me. But at the height, not the height, but the height of World War II, there were like, I don't know, like 10, full generals, 4 stars, something like 10. Today there's like 44 in peacetime. The military doesn't exist like it did then. What I'm trying to tell you is that the military there, they were a government all their own. And remember that the founding fathers feared a standing army more than anything you can imagine. They were okay with the Navy, especially with the pirates of the Barbary Coast, thus the Treaty of Tripoli to kind of calm them down. But this was a world that was completely different than what we know now. It knows no peer. What we're in right now, every aspect of our civilization, our country, military, courts, government, the deep state, the police state, the intel state, shadow government, there is so much cancer in our republic now. It knows no parallel in human history. None. So those guys, that military then, they wanted to take out Nixon. They just took out JFK, and they did it. And the thing people don't understand about this, and forgive me for digressing, but I think this is important. The thing they don't understand is we love to think and we love to believe in these multi-jurisdictional distinctions between CIA, FBI, military intelligence, maybe naval intelligence. That's about it. Organized crime here, good guys here. It was the same. It was a world that just. Let me stop for 1 second, my friends, as I try to contain myself. This is a very exciting night for me. And let me say again that I'm so honored that you are with me and with us this evening. Now, please take a moment and listen to our great friends from preparedness.com regarding something that is also of incredible importance. It's no longer a question of if something catastrophic is coming, it's when. Now, what are you going to be doing about it to prepare now? Your first step is going to my website, preparedness.com, preparedness.com. And for a limited time, enjoy their special partner offer. Take $50 off a 4-week or $100 off a 3-month emergency food supply. You decide, but act now. My Patriot Supply is equipped to help you and your family prepare. They've helped over 2 million families already, and they're simply the best. These 4-week starter kits provide over 2,000 calories every day, 16 varieties, 25-year shelf life, breakfast, lunches, dinners, snacks, everything, you name it. And they're sealed inside 2 rugged waterproof buckets and over 31 pounds of food. But the best deal, what I recommend, is the 3-month supply. But anyway, it's your choice, but act now. Take advantage now, and preparewithlionel.com is where you should go. Preparewithlionel.com. My friends, the level of sophistication of the news now is at its worst. There was a time when there was a certain degree of, dare I say, sobriety, intelligence. When you mention names like Irving R. Levine, these are like professors. Charles Collingwood, Douglas Edwards. That's what I grew up with. Cronkite was there, but there were some others that were just everything. Even the sports writers, Jimmy Cannon, Murray Kempton. These were geniuses. What's his name? Pembroke Pegler, or oh God, you know what I'm talking about. It's a different world then. There was a time in New York City where we had, this was before my time, like 12 or so daily newspapers. I don't mean a little penny saver. I mean serious stuff. America was so much smarter, so monumentally smarter. I mean, it really was something. And you know what's interesting also was it filtered down as well. People were smarter. Corruption was certainly there, but I can work with corruption, but I can't deal with stupid. Now, there were always some folks who were, I remember going back and recently going through the life of Adam Clayton Powell. Remember him? Well, that was a character. And we had our moments. Jim Wright, who they thought was Speaker of the House, the most corrupt man ever. He sold some books. It was nothing. We thought that Dan Quayle was stupid because he couldn't spell potato. He was a genius compared to these. And now we have folks, my friend, like Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, I know you like her spunk, and I do too, but this is no rocket scientist. Lauren Boebert, AOC, that little dust up between, was it Jasmine Crockett? Dear God. Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill. What's it going to be like in 5 to 10 years? It's Jamal Bowman, cretin. With all due respects to cretins, stupid. He was the Beethoven of stupid. He gave stupid life. He embodied stupid. He breathed stupid. Stupid is something we can't deal with. And you can look at people like Fannie Willis, where that could actually be elected. A moron. And recently, this I can't. Thank God they finally booted her. This Christina Peterson, she was a probate judge in Georgia. I know that may seem a bit provincial, but she's even below stupid. You know, there used to be these designations: imbecile, stupid. I'm sorry, not stupid. Imbecile, moron. There actually were scientific classifications. You know. It just never ceases to. George Santos. One night we were at a Republican event, and this guy walks in, and they were jumping up and down, clapping for reasons I have no idea, because I guess he was a Democrat, or he was a Republican. Carrie Lake. What? Why is Carrie Lake so terrific? Why? What did she ever do? I don't know. Because they tried to keep her from her office. People fell in love with her because of what? How she looks? Is that it? I don't understand. Mitt Romney, who's a jadrul, let me tell you something. Mitt Romney at least comports himself like a gentleman. That means something to me. Maybe I'm living in some kind of another world or something. Maybe I'm just an old-fashioned type, but I love that. I respect that. I really love the days where there were Reagan and others. They were I mean, there was a real style. And I'll tell you what, people get very upset with me. But Obama had a panache and a style, and Bill Clinton too. Bill Clinton too. It really started to collapse with W. Because W was a moron. He was a neocon, PNAC, hardcore, globalist, Prescott Bush's grandson, moron, who didn't know what the hell he was talking about, who went to bed early and didn't care, didn't read. I mean, that's when it really took a turn for the worse. That was it. And we thought he was, and many people think that he spoke some doozies as well with his malaprops. Many people still suspect that was because of what is referred to as Broca's area encephalopathy. Broca's encephalopathy, where people are, by virtue of their years of, is it Broca's or Wernicke's? I think it might be Wernicke's. It's called wet brain, but for years and years of alcohol abuse, because he was a bad one, and a dry drunk later on, which was very interesting because, as you know, a dry drunk is somebody who stopped drinking but didn't get sober. And that's one of the reasons why I'm very concerned about Bobby Kennedy. And nobody will talk about this. You see, nobody will ever discuss this because they think it's rude. Oh, isn't it wonderful that he triumphed over heroin? Yes, it is. But I don't know if he's necessarily the type of person I want to be president because of the stresses that puts you under. It's bad enough as it is. Nixon was a real serious drinker. Did you ever hear the story about how he slugged and beat the hell out of Pat? See, people have it's so funny how people, what? Because they have these ideas in their minds about how people comport. LBJ, oh my God. LBJ might have been, hands down, the most corrupt criminal president in our history. They still say he might have been responsible for killing his sister, Josepha, with Mac Wallace and others. He was more corrupt with Bobby Baker, and he redefined it. And Bobby Kennedy referred to him as an animal. This is when it really started to change. But at least in public, he could somewhat comport, at least try to. I don't know where we're going right now. The fact that anybody allowed, the fact that friends of mine who are the fact that friends of mine who themselves had parents that they took to doctors and neurologists to see if they were perhaps addled by various problems, you would think that they would be very, very concerned over a president who exhibited the very same symptoms that their parents exhibited. Somebody asked one time in a little vignette I saw, social media, for all of its bad, is very, very good at really getting to the bottom. Really getting to the bottom of what something means. And one of the things I thought was interesting was they said, or they asked the question. They stopped a woman at a shopping center parking lot and said, "Whom will you vote for?" She said, "I don't know. I'm not really good at this." And as she walked away, somebody said, "Would you let Joe Biden take care of your kids?" She says, "Oh, no." Let me ask you something. Ask yourself this question. Would you let Trump take care of your kid? If you said, listen, I'm going to be, I know this is ridiculous and I don't know when it would ever happen, but work with me hypothetically. I've got to run to the store, or I'll be gone for an hour. President Trump, could you watch little Becky here? And I'm not saying this just because I'm voting for him. I would think, absolutely. Absolutely. You can say what you want about his kids. And, we hear certain things. Don Jr. was I don't know him, but people always say he's a bit of a wild one. Okay, well, hello. Who's not wild? Okay. Can you pass the wild test? You don't want to know about me. You can't believe what I'm capable of doing. but say what you want about the Trump boys and girls. They're upstanding. I think Ivanka's dumb as rocks, and she just wants to walk around and be sexy. Eric, I think, is the smartest of the group, but they are upstanding compared to that complete off the chains degenerate, that reprobate, that blatherskite and poltroon, that horrid Hunter. Did you hear today how one of the reasons that they suspect that Michelle Obama wasn't campaigning for Joe is because she was very upset with the way they treated Hunter's ex-wife, who apparently was close to Michelle, so they say. But anyway, they asked a woman, would you let Joe Biden watch your kids? Absolutely not. Think about that. Would you let Joe Biden drive you home from the airport? As a friend of mine said, no. That says everything. That says everything. So tonight, doesn't matter about this debate. Doesn't matter. It's going to be fun to watch. We'll be watching it. I'm going to be doing their Twitter thing because I love watching in real time and noticing different things. But I'll be pointing things out, as will you, that have nothing to do with reality. It has nothing to do with whether anybody's going to win or lose, or whether anybody cares about it, or whether it doesn't matter. It's just pointing out things to be crass, to just troll. We just want to troll. We like making fun of people. That's what we do. We love doing that. We want to have gaffes and slip-ups, and we want to see that big moment. But as I'm speaking to you right now, these horrible, rancid, terrible people in the world of cable news, they've already determined that Joe's the winner. They've already determined that he's the winner. They're already going to say that Biden was great and he answered the questions and under fire and he seemed composed and seemed presidential. You can go through it. Doesn't matter. And if President Trump asked me, as I told you before, what is it that I can do? And I would say, well, Mr. President, as you know, everybody seems to be an expert. We were watching something before, Mrs. L and I. It was a piece that was put together by the Washington Post. And it was some woman or somebody, and they said, the plan is for debate is don't make any mistakes. Nobody's won, but they've certainly lost. And they say these cliche things. And I would sit there and say, Mr. President, I want you to listen to me. This is the year 2024. This is the world of UFC. This is a world of TikTok. This is a world of drag shows, and this is a different time. It knows no parallel. Ronald Reagan is dead. Ronald Reagan-esque stuff doesn't matter, because even though you and I might think it's great for you to act presidential, the country does not care about it. So what should you do, sir? Simple. as we've been teaching you, you're going to go in and you're going to insult everybody, not blatantly. In fact, it's more effective if you do it by pointing out something that they've done. And I'd love to ask Jake Tapper right off the bat, Mr. President, throw him off. This is your Torquemada. This is your Inquisitor. And I would say, Jake, I never thought I'd live to see a debate where you cut someone's mic off in a room with no audience. One of the things years ago, which was noted about Bill Clinton when he did his debate, was there was one case in particular where a black woman in the audience, a young woman, when he was saying, when there's a factory that closes, I know their names or something like that. And they zoomed in on her and she just. Mrs. L and I were watching something the other night. This is a tangential note. It's a history of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. The DCC, as they're called. And nobody really thought that much when they were like 1980 something when they came along. And there was one scene, one moment, one event. It was a Monday Night Football or something. I don't know when it was. It was Dallas Cowboys. And there was a cheerleader. And somebody happened to zoom down. There always were cheerleaders at football games and teams, and professional and otherwise, but nobody really cared. But they zoomed down just one shot of this one kind of a dark-haired cheerleader. And she looked up at the camera and gave him a kind of a wink, kind of a sexy wink, like, hey, y'all, hey, darling. And that killed him. That one moment. And that sent the DCC on a trajectory. That one moment. It sounds crazy, but it's true. Certain things can happen. In that one moment when Bill Clinton was looking at it, he said, I feel your pain. He does. And this one black woman she was young. She was nodding her head in affirmation and approbation in a sincere connection. It was beautiful. I thought that was great. And you took this away. You took the audience away. Can you make this more sterile? Why don't we teleport? Why don't we go? Why don't we just do a remote? Why are we even here? Let's completely separate all of the humanity that is normally associated with a debate. Let's destroy the conviviation, the humanity, the exchange of looks, the presence of the people, the plebiscite. Let's make this as foolproof and bulletproof and childproof for old Pops over here as possible. You ought to be ashamed of yourself right off the bat. You think I'm kidding? Tapper will lose his mind. And old Dan is going to be there. Not old, but Dan is going to be there sitting next to him. Dana, he's going to let you talk? You? You think this is fair, Dana? You think this is fair? Is this the way you would organize it? Making this as sterile and devoid of humanity as possible in order to protect him? Because I know what you're doing, Dana. I know what this is all about. I know the purpose of this. This is the last-ditch effort. And why is this in Atlanta? We could have done this in New York. We could have done this anywhere. Why in Atlanta? Are you worried about protests or something? Why here? And why did it take him a week to prepare? A couple of days here and there. But for a week, who ran the show? Because he's still the president. Who ran the show when he was doing this for a week? Is he that enfeebled? Who runs it? Kamala? I'm still getting over her speech of the day about what a community bank is, which is a bank in the community that hires people from the community. And one of the overarching themes of the bank is that it's part of the community. I don't know what I'm seeing here. Oh, they wouldn't know what to do. But the one zinger that Trump will forever be known for, which just didn't win his election, but it was, if you believe in the comedic gods and timing, when Hillary said something like, and he was kind of like walking around, he was like pacing a little bit, kind of behind her. Sort of. And she said something like, can you imagine a world or a country where Donald Trump is in charge of the legal system? He said, and there was this pause, this perfect pause. And he says, yeah, you'd be in jail. It was just drop the mic, as they say. Let's go home. It was perfection. It was so good. If it was anybody else, I'd swear you arranged that. Listen carefully, my friends, to this last word from a great sponsor. All right, dear friends, it's time yet again to hail and salute our great friends at mypillow.com. And if you use promo code Lionel, you get a free gift. No purchase necessary. And yes, I know, a free gift. It's a tautology. So sue me. But first, listen. Check out their $25 extravaganzas. Listen to this. Premium MyPillows, King and Queen, MyPillow 2.0, MyPillow bed sheets, the lowest prices ever, sandals, slides, and slippers, 6-piece towel sets, 4-pack dish towel sets, simply and absolutely the best. It is unbelievable. So go to mypillow.com/Lionel or call 800-645-4965 and watch how fast Mike answers the phone. mypillow.com, promo code Lionel, mypillow.com, promo code Lionel, simply the best, simply and absolutely the best. My dear friends, let me say that as we look forward to this evening, remember that I will be there with you in spirit. If you are on X, which is what it's called now, but I still call it Twitter. If you are on X or Twitter, please, I beg and implore you, please, to follow along with my intonations, my thoughts, my concepts, my unique way of responding. We will then meet, of course, tomorrow at 8 a.m. to review our notes. Please take notes. Please make sure you note the particular moment that affected you the most. And let me say that I thank you. And Mr. Keene, I thank you for your perception, your contribution tonight to the cause. It is most appreciated, dear friend. Thank you. Please make sure you follow Mrs. L at Lynn's Warriors. I cannot say that enough. Lynn's Warriors. Because the fight for children and to stop child predation and human trafficking goes on. All right, dear friends, thank you. We're going to get through this. If everything seems to be as it appears to be, Donald Trump will be reelected. But I'm not taking anything for granted until that day on January the 20th of 2025, when he actually swore himself in. Then I will believe it. All right, dear friends, have a great and a glorious day. Thank you so much. You are the reason God made Oklahoma. And I mean that. Have a great and a glorious night. See you tomorrow morning. Enjoy the debate tonight. Remember, take notes, and we'll reconvene tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Until then, remember, the monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue ya. Da-da.